In this short series, we are going to talk about what I personally do when I stand up a new environment. And these may be things I've learned from past experience or some best practices, but by no means are they all encompassing. We're going to attack it from three separate areas, and in this specific episode, we're going to talk about the things I do in regards to ease of use. Now, most of this is done after I've been given the box. However, the file system design phase is done when we are working on standing the box up. This is usually when I'm engaging a system administrator to talk about the disk backend design. And because this really can't be shown on a local machine and it needs a server, I'm going to talk about it at a 40,000 foot view. When you're dealing with the system design phase, I always take a look at trying to separate things based off of a separation of duties. And I'm trying to do it from two perspectives. At the minimum, I'm going to try to do it at the logical level. This is going to prevent crashing from one area filling up and crashing another. For example, when your DB2 error log goes crazy because of an issue, you don't want it crashing your database because it's in the same file system as the data that you're holding. So if you take a look at the logical view here, you're going to see I have three distinct areas: a data logical volume, the logging logical volume, and an administrative logical volume. And these all serve separate purposes. I want to get the data away from the logs. I want my backup away from my data. And if you noticed, some of these can be grouped together. I don't need a logical volume for my archive logs, a logical volume for my backups. Those don't necessarily make sense. But I can group those together logically because if either one of them filled up, it's not going to necessarily crash my database because my data file system is full. Now this is the minimum I will do. If I can, I always try to link these logical volumes to a separation of disk at the physical level. Now this is a lot harder to do because of the cloud design that everybody does. It's being able to spin up in AWS and just needing a bank of disk is really easy. However, I always want to try to separate the disk if possible, because you can have disks that are for logging slow down the database because they're intermingled with the disks that are being used for data. It does happen, and I've seen it happen even in cloud-based architecture. Now, you will probably get pushback with this. If you're talking to your system administrator or storage administrator, they're going to tell you, don't worry about it. That's how it used to be done. There is so much between you and that disk, from load balancing to caching to hotspot monitoring. You're not going to have a problem. Don't worry about it. And my response to them is, if it's possible, try to separate them. Because even in the cloud-based design, in the past 2 or 3 years, I still have seen disks in one area affect another. And it may not be possible. But at that point in time, you can respond, okay, don't necessarily have to separate them, but you better make sure I have a whole lot of IOPS. If you're addressing things at this logical level at a minimum, and even better, if you can even get it down to the physical level on the back end, you're going to proactively address crashing from one item affecting another, or contention because one item is affecting another. And this is something I try to put in every build if possible. To me, it's one of the most critical things you can do. Well, now that we've talked about the file system design, let's go ahead and go on to the server, and I'll throw some commands to show you some of the next items I try to address. The next area I like to focus on is the user profile. This is where I keep all the environmental items that I want to either automatically load or display when I come in. This essentially makes life easier. So I am going to clear my screen, and I'm going to go to my default home directory. This is where I'm automatically plopped as DB2 inst1 every time I log in. Now, one of the things that you're going to be editing is the dot profile, and I want to show you something interesting. If I just look at what is in that directory, you're going to see I don't have a dot profile. That's because it's a hidden file. For you to see it, you have to do lsla. Now, anything with a dot in front of it is the hidden file that you can go in and work with. So in this specific case, I want to edit the dot profile. vi.profile. When you get into your dot profile, you will probably find there are already things in there that were default from your DB2 installation or that your system administrator have done. We're just going to tack things on. In this specific case, it's trying to load some basic directories that, hey, when you execute something, you may want to look here first to make sure it's there. Then you have the DB2 profile. This is what automatically loads, so you can type commands like db2 whatever. It understands to go run it as a db2 command. If it didn't exist, it would tell you every time that this doesn't make sense. So what are we going to put in here? Well, there are a few things, and you're going to have to forgive me. I'm going to cut and paste to make this easier. The first thing I like to do is to give myself command line recall. This allows me just to hit the VI keys, to hit escape K when I am on the main command line, and it will just start pulling up all the commands I've done before, so I don't have to retype them. The next thing I'd like to do is change to a more descriptive prompt. This is something that helps me make sure I'm not typing commands in the wrong box. So it's going to show me who I am, db2inst1. It's going to show me the box I'm on with the host name, and it'll even show me directories as I move around. That way I don't have to think, am I on the wrong box? Am I on dev? Am I in production? Am I in the right file system? It's automatically displayed there. Now the next thing that may seem a little odd to you, and I don't see it often, but it was a habit that I got into because my very first mentor used to be a system administrator, and before she was a DBA. And so it's the concept of a splash screen. I love splash screens. And this also comes into play from all my time in production support. When your hair is on fire, you don't want to think, am I on dev or am I on the production box? Is there something special I need to know? What was the instance that I'm dealing with? Is this monitored? Because I know it was a dev box, not production. What's the schedule of my backup? So I ended up creating a splash screen that I use all the time. And this goes on any box I work on, and I have a template here that I use. It's pretty simple. You just go in and put in some of your basics. So let's say the server I'm working is some crazy nomenclature. We'll call it WC 0LVT01. Something crazy, right? Something you would never remember. Then what's my purpose? In this case, I'm going to mention that this is a production box. What's the database name? Again, I don't want to have to think. So we're going to say that the database name is WC093 D02. It's the second development database. What's my instance ID? This helps a lot because you may have more than one there. So I'm going to put that this is set for db2inst1. Is monitoring enabled? I'm going to say yes because this is production. Is HADR enabled? No, not in this case. Is maintenance enabled? Yes. Is monitoring enabled? Yes. I'm going to say yes. That way I know there are logistical things I'm dealing with. I know that it's going to page out if something goes wrong. The miscellaneous notes, you can put here whatever you want. For example, I'm going to say that I know we have backups Sunday at 1 a.m. My backup location, if I can, my backup location, we just created db2fs backups. And you know what? I don't care about my locking event monitor, so I'm just going to edit it out. Now, you're going to see a couple differences here if you're not familiar with it at all. When I have echo, this is what's displayed on screen. Anything with echo between quotes is going to pop up on screen, where anything else is considered a command, like export, clear, set. Those are the various items. So I have updated my profile. Let's go ahead and save it. Now I want it to load for this first time to make sure everything is okay. Normally when you log in as db2inst1, it'll automatically execute. That's the purpose of this, right? Automatically run these environmental items so I don't have to type them every time. But if you don't want to log out and log back in, you're going to type dot space dot slash dot profile. Boom. So I now have my command line recall. I also cleared the screen so I don't see all the other junk, and it displayed my splash screen. So when I log into this box, I immediately know where I am, where the important items are, and what's on and off. So this is just a time saver. It makes things a lot easier. The last thing I do in my ease of use category, my initial setup, is to set up Crontab. Crontab is a scheduling program that's tied at the user level and allows you to log off, but the server knows that at 5 a.m. every Sunday I need to run a backup, and this is the script to run. So the very first time I tried to do this, I remember typing vi crontab, thinking, oh, I just create a file somewhere. And no, that's not how it works. There are actually two commands. You actually type the word crontab, and then there are two flags that you use. The -L will tell you if anything already exists. In this case, it doesn't. So we want to create one from scratch and do crontab-E. Now, it's preloading a bunch of junk I really don't care about. And I want to point out, if you notice at the very beginning of every line is a £sign or a hashtag. This means it's a comment. So it flat out ignores anything after the comment. The other item to note is this isn't like the splash screens I was using in my dot profile. Remember, I had the echo and then put things in quotes to throw things on screen. That's really not used here. This, you can put a header in here through comments, and then each line that's not commented will be executed. So I have a template that I like to use that I'm going to go ahead and pull, and it's been slightly edited already to save us some time. I have the name of the box and the database. You're going to notice it's very much like what I had as the splash screen for my dot profile. I don't have to echo it. There's not anything that I want displayed when I run something. When I go into the Crontab entry, I just want to see a header that tells me what box I'm on and some basics, so I can easily just go and edit without having to worry about conflicts. The other thing I put here is a notes section. This could be added, and matter of fact, I think there is a notes section in the profile splash screen. But what I put here are special items like, hey, remember you're in a different time zone, or there are loads at 3 a.m. on Sunday, don't schedule anything there. After I have my header in place, I have 3 placeholders I automatically put there. I know I have to do a reorg and run stats. I know I'm going to set up a database backup. I know I'm going to rotate my DB2 error log every night. And I created for you guys an example entry here at the top. The way Crontab works is there is a section up front that basically tells the timing of things. The very first 0 here says at what minute. The 5 is at what hour, so 5 a.m. in the morning. If it's 11 o'clock at night, there is no AM, PM. You would put 23 for the hour. This is the day of month and the month of year. This isn't being used. Whenever you say splat or the asterisk, that means run it all the time. It's not a specific day. It's not a specific month. And then the very tail end here where the 0 is, this is the day of week. Now, there are a couple variations of this, but I've always been taught that 0 is Sunday. So right now, this example shows on Sunday at 5 a.m., I want to run this command. If I wanted to run it on Monday, that 0 would be a 1. Tuesday, it would be a 2. Now, you can immediately jump into the command if you wanted to. Just give it a fully qualified path name and go. However, sometimes things get snarled in the shell when it comes to variables. And what do you do about output? And what if you have an error? So a habit I got in that was actually after seeing a friend do this is to break it into 3 commands. The first part, which ends in a semicolon, basically says load my profile. You remember everything we just did? Go ahead and load those environmental items that I want in place. Because in this specific case, it tells Crontab how to run a db2 command. It was that piece that was already in my .profile before we got started. Once I pull my profile and I have my environment in place, I want you to go ahead and change to the directory where my scripts are. When you're there, I want you to run this specific script, and I want you to redirect the output when you're done here. And this is for the standard input and output. Basically, I don't care what it is. I want it written to that file at all times. So it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. The first piece is the scheduling piece. Then I break it up into 3 parts, load my profile and my environment variables, change to the directory where my script is, run the script and redirect it somewhere else. To make this active, remember this is a example and currently commented out. So let's say I've already put my script in place. I know it's there. I've got everything set and ready to go. When you're ready to turn it on, get rid of that pound sign. Now it's active. And as soon as I do right quit to get out of the file, it's going to immediately look at the cron tab and go, do I need to run anything? No. Okay. When are they scheduled? Got it. And it will wait, and when it comes to that time, it will go and execute it. So in this specific case, I don't want these to run yet. So I'm going to comment them back out. And although there was a special command to get your Crontab file, it's treated as VI or Vim once you're in there. So I have everything in place, and I'm going to escape :WQ bang, which basically means write. Now if I take a look at it, remember that -L command? There's my cron tab. The very top header tells me everything I need to know about the box. Here are all my entries, what's commented, what's not. So that was the last piece of this little section. These are the first things I will do as soon as I get a hold of my box, is create my logical areas to reduce contention and so where I know everything is. Create a user.profile so I can automatically load some environmental items such as command line recall, create a splash screen that's useful for me, clear the screen, and then I immediately go ahead and put in a cron tab so I remember what scripts need to be put in, what maintenance needs to be done, and it gives me an overall description of the box I'm on, so it's easy to reference once I'm in. Well, that's the first part. The next phase we're going to be talking about is the DB2 environment and then the database environment. These are more items that are specific to DB2, where we want certain things on and other things off or best practices in place. But that'll be in the next episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.